In this video, I'm going to go over some of the pros and cons of masking. Not really even cons, I'll be honest. It's really just the pros of masking and some of the different ways we can go about using it. All right. So to get started, I have this file called 2puppy. All right. So this is video 2 for this series. The lesson is puppy. There's 2 more files in there we're going to open up in a moment. Having this file, I can take a look at some of the options that I would have for making selections. It's all very monochromatic. It's going to be hard to make some good selections, but we're going to be able to paint in and have a little bit more control than we usually have. First thing I'm going to do is unlock my background. So I double click on it, on the layer, hit OK. Great. Let's go and open up another file. The other file for right now that we'll open up is, let's go with, let's open up sunset photo. So 2 sunset photo. All right. And now we're going to grab photo from the layers palette and drag it right into puppy. Okay. It's a little smaller than the first image, and that's fine. I'm going to put it up here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this image. And there's a couple different ways you can work with masks, okay? So the idea that I've kind of come up with is, what if we had a little kind of cartoony thought bubble that comes off of his head because he's sort of looking up, right? And we'd have a little like cloud, like a little like daydream sort of thing about this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my photo as is, and I'm going to hide the whole thing. So I'm going to add a mask to it, and I'm going to make that mask fully black. Now I'm going to hit the letter D on my keyboard. That defaults my foreground and background colors back to white and black, respectively. And now I'm going to fill the whole thing, Command Delete, fill with background color. Now it's all black. Now, if I grab my brush tool, somewhere around here, I'm going to click, and I'm just going to sort of paint around. And I'm intentionally using sort of this bubbly look. There you go. It kind of has a cloud look to it. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Now my brush a little smaller. Click once there. Make it a little smaller. Click again. Make it a little smaller. Click again. All right, so there's nothing in that area. Now, here's another nice thing I can do with masking. I'm going to uncheck this link icon. And by unchecking it, well, I'll show you first. Leaving it checked, this is all linked, right? So by having them linked, this image can move around exactly as it is. But what if I want to move just a part of it? If I unlink this and click on the mask part, I can move the mask around the image. I can also move the image around the mask by clicking that. So here, I can realize I'm just about there where I can make the whole thing selectable, right? So it's this idea of making masks and giving yourself that freedom to make adjustments, to move things around, to make some alterations. We'll give another example, something really, really simple. Let's go back to our files, and let's open up this time Hawaii photo. All right. Now, I'm going to grab my text tool. So hit the letter T on your keyboard, or scroll down in your toolbar to your type tool. And I'm just going to click once, and it's going to pull up whatever the last file text sizes you had were. Mine were quite large. So let's go with something 15, 16 point, something like that. And you're going to want a really thick font for this. Not a typeface I use all that often. It seems to be one that students really like, but let's go with Impact for the moment. Again, design-wise, not necessarily a huge fan of it. And that lorem ipsum that appears, that's our placeholder text. That is a kind of Latin placeholder, just so we can see what things look like. So if I type in Hawaii, because that's the name of the file, and maybe I want to mess with the text a little bit, we can get into it with our character palette. So we can change, and if you don't see this, by the way, again, window for any palette you don't see, character. Change your typeface. Change your font style. Impact only comes in one weight, so we can't do much about that. I'm going to change my tracking down a little bit, make these letters a little closer together, not that close. Make my text a little bigger. All right. And now that's about as thick as I need it to be. Color doesn't matter at the moment. I'm not worried about that. One thing I could do is I could do a type effect to it. Let me grab my type tool again. Click on it, and I'm going to go up here to this T with a arc underneath it, and you'll see my warp text. So I can do something like this. I can arc my type. That's pretty unattractive. Maybe this style would be a little better. That's a little better. That's a little too much distortion there. A little too much bend. So I'm just going to do some light stylizing. All right, so I have something like this. And you could go with whatever you want. That's Arch. You can go through all these different, bulge out the text. You can do the fisheye or the flag style. I'm just keeping it simple with this. All right, so whatever your type is, all we want to do right now is make a selection out of that type. First thing, let's go grab our sunset photo once again, because we have that one loaded up. Let's grab photo. Drag it over, drop it right on top. This is about the same size as the original, so we'll have plenty of room to play. So what I want you to do is we're going to put a selection around everything that's on this layer for Hawaii, even though we can't see it. Anytime you want to put a selection around what's on a layer, hold Command. So if you hold Command and click on a layer, it puts a selection around the contents of that layer. In this case, with type, it puts a selection around the type. Now, I have that selected. I'm on my photo layer. I'm just going to hit Mask. I'm going to hide the original Hawaii text because I don't need that there anymore. And now I'm going to unlink these, click on my sunset photo, and Command T to transform. And I'm just going to size this so I can see a bit more going on in the image. All right, and maybe position it so that the sun is in a visible spot. I like it right there in the A. Right. And now if I want to link these back together, I can now move this around. Right. So this is a way that we can take A, and you'll see that the original text is back there. Right. So I don't need the original text. I can actually erase this. I can delete it altogether. This is not text. This is a selection that looks like text. Now, just like before, if I hold Command and click on this, you'll see it puts a selection around it right away because that's all that's on there. Click on Command and hit this one, I get a selection around just the image. Now, this is a good opportunity to just kind of experiment and stylize. So this is what I recommend at this point. Once you get to here, come down to your effects palette. And if you look, we have several different effects here. We have our blending options, and then we have bevel and emboss, stroke, inner shadow, inner glow, satin, color overlay, gradient overlay, pattern overlay, outer glow, and drop shadow. So these effects can be used in conjunction with each other. These are a really good thing to experiment with and play around with. I'll give you a little bit of an example. If I click on stroke, here you go. I get automatically this menu for layer styling. All of them are applicable here. And I get my stroke on there. Now, I would have said I wanted a yellow anyway, which happened to be what I defaulted to. I'm going to eyedrop, though. I want to eyedrop that specific yellow. I'm on the wrong layer, so I can't eyedrop that just right now. Let me hit OK. Let me just eyedrop this. Okay, I just wanted to know what that color was. All right. FFFF5A. That's the color I want. All right, so that matches that sun a little bit better. And I could change the amount of stroke it has. All right, so I could start to mess with this. Now, blending mode, position. This is where you really just need to start experimenting. So the position, having the stroke inside the shape. Centered in between inside and outside, or just on the outside. Text, could Could go either way. If you go text on the outside, it gets a little messy. So text being inside isn't the worst thing. Maybe do a little bit of a medium-sized stroke there. We could change the opacity on it. We could change the blending mode just on that stroke. Okay. We could also add another stroke if we wanted. We could double it up. So we can do, right now this has a very, this is adding an inside stroke. We could do multiple strokes. We could do shadows. We could do inner shadow, outer shadow. Give you an idea what some of these things look like. A lot of people in the beginning tend to love drop shadows. Don't go crazy with these, but there is a drop shadow, kind of what you're used to seeing as a drop shadow. Right, so we can change the distance from the image. So basically how high up that drop shadow seems, or how high up the text seems. Spread, which is going to kind of control the fade off of it, and size. So you can see how this sort of breaks out. All right, so you want something a little bit, well, I won't say real because drop shadows will never look real because there's no point in reality usually that something would float over an image like this. Change the opacity, you could change the blending mode. You could even use just something like drop shadow to stylize something. I've done a couple projects where I've ended up doing something like this with a drop shadow at a low distance. Let's see. And just kind of giving a little bit of, it becomes more of a glow effect at that point. And let's go normal. And so you can control the fade off. Right. So just giving you guys a little bit of an idea of how to experiment. You could do spread like this and then size. So you get yourself almost like a doubled stroke, that kind of feel. But you have a little bit more or a different type of control, not more control. We have things like bevel and emboss to make it look either like it has some depth to it, outer bevels, inner bevels, things like that. So there's a lot of ways you can play around with these and start to stylize something like that. It's actually not the worst look in the world. Right, and then when you're done, you can hit OK. You can hide each one of these individually so you can see what each step did and how, if you like the individual step that was applied. All right. And all of these effects can actually be dragged to other layers. So right now it's going to be hard to see, but that's actually on the outside layer. If I Command T and shrink this in a little. That's my whole image now. So this is a good opportunity to experiment with these guys, but really what this is about the masking idea, being able to play around with our mask, moving images around our selection and creating these kind of windows so that you see through one image and into another. All right, so give that a try, see what you can come up with, save it, let's see what you got.